To what seemed to be an impossible team to beat when healthy, the Brooklyn Nets crumbled from the inside out. This team went to 7 games with the champion Bucks without Kyrie for most of the series and an injured James Harden. This Big Three was supposed to be the most talented core in the history of the league, and that should have created a dynasty, or at least a championship, or a finals appearance, or at the very least a conference finals appearance, but none of that could happen. Most fans considered them a super team and they massively underachieved. However, when a team with top tier talents begin to start a new chapter without those stars, it often sets themselves up for a nice future, with some good young players and lots of draft picks. But unfortunately, this isn't going to be the case for the Brooklyn Nets. To what looked like multiple future championships has now led to a broken franchise with a dark road ahead. Before all of this started, the Brooklyn Nets made what many would consider the worst trade in NBA history. In 2013, the Nets traded away their future to have a short taste of success. After Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett got to Brooklyn, they both fell off a cliff, and the Nets knew that they would have to go through a long, grueling rebuild. But in 2019, the Nets had an exciting team that made the playoffs. They landed KD and Kyrie in the next offseason, and things were finally looking great for the team. They traded for James Harden and were the favorites to win it all. They rebounded from one of the worst trades of all time to a super team. When it all seemed to work out, it all fell apart, and now they might have to start all over again. And here we are to the present day, where Kevin Durant is requesting a trade from the team, and if he leaves, the Nets have Kyrie, Irving, and Ben Simmons to lead the team. The current situation is already bad enough, but there are 2 reasons why the future is still a downhill path for the Brooklyn Nets. Number 1, they are going to lose their stars. Ever since KD, Kyrie, and Harden joined the team, so many questions popped up. There were so many uncertainties with this team that something would have to go wrong. This team imploded and they hardly played together. The Big Three played a total of 16 games together before blowing it all up. James Harden already left the team, and now Kevin Durant has requested a trade. But the Nets don't have to trade Kevin Durant. He still has 4 years left on his contract, so they could force him up to lace up his shoes and play for the team. But this comes with a lot of other problems. Imagine being on the Nets and having to play games and go through practices with Kevin Durant when you know he doesn't even want to be there. The locker room on this team is already bad enough, and this just makes it even worse. When Kevin Durant requested a trade, the Nets thought that they had one of the best players in the league available, so teams are going to be lining up with big packages to give them for KD. But that wasn't really the case. There are some solid offers, but it wasn't anything that they were hoping for. When a good offer finally comes up, whether it's sooner or later, I think they won't hesitate to trade him, because they would want to move on from a disgruntled star, as it's better for them and Durant. In the trade, the Nets are going to be giving up the superstar, and whatever they get in return isn't going to be as good as him. So if Brooklyn was unsuccessful with Kevin Durant on the team, what makes you think that the Nets are going to be any better without him? Kyrie Irving is still under contract for 1 more year with the Nets, and I don't know why they would want him to come back. Assuming Kevin Durant leaves, what use does Kyrie bring to the team? They won't be competing for a championship, so you might as well trade him to get other pieces back. And once both of them leave, the Nets will be forced to rebuild. And the second reason why the Nets have a dark future is that their rebuild will take a long time. After KD and Kyrie leave, assuming they do, the Nets won't be a competitive team and will have to start from scratch. They don't have any young players to build around, and that is key for a rebuild. Ben Simmons is 25, so you could try to build a team around him, but that's taking a big risk. He isn't a reliable or proven player, but he does have some pretty good potential. But it's not the end of the world that they don't have a player to build around, because when they tank, they could just get a top pick and build around them. Alright, they traded their picks away, and even if they did have them, it isn't a guarantee that they would get a top pick. In next year's draft, they have their own first round pick and one coming from Houston or Philly, so not that bad, right? But the next time that they have the first round pick is in 2027. Looking back, the James Harden trade is looking worse and worse. Now that the Nets are probably going to be bad, it looks like the picks that they gave up are going to be really valuable, and the Rockets might actually end up being the winners of the trade. But if the Nets trade Durant and Irving, they will get a bunch of picks in return. It sounds like it all evens out, but it doesn't. As long as KD and Kyrie are in their primes, They are going to be trying to win a championship and will be on a contending team, or at least a competitive team. So the team Brooklyn is going to trade with won't have high draft picks. Unless a miracle happens, they would either have to trade up in the draft or trade for a young star. At a quick glance, the Brooklyn situation doesn't look so bad. You have your stars under contract, so you could force them to play, but let's just say you let them have their way. You will get so much back in return for the rebuild. But as you look closer and closer, things start to look worse for the Nets. I hope the best for Brooklyn, but their future is worse than a lot of people think. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, leave a like as it does help me a lot. I read every single comment, so let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.